Good evening, everyone. As Dennis said, my name is Dearbhala Ledwidge and I'm the Heritage Officer with the County Council. Can you hear me okay? So between myself and my colleague Evelyn Graham, who's the Conservation Officer, we kind of manage the heritage function, if you like, of the Council, although it crosses lots of different sections of the Council in addition to our own. And I suppose in a way it seems like we're totally changing topic from what Dennis was just talking about retail, but thinking about it really, I suppose what makes Kilkenny so attractive for both people like ourselves who are living in the city and the county, but also for visitors who are coming to the city and county, is the streetscapes we have, the quality of our architecture, the quality of our natural heritage, and I would argue that that actually adds to the quality of the retail function and service that we can actually provide to people. So there is a bit of a crossover there between what we're both speaking about. So what I really wanted to talk to you very briefly, maximum 10 minutes, is just about heritage in the context of the County Development Plan. And the three main topics that I'm going to look at is just a very brief introduction to what is heritage, because heritage means something different to everybody and it's a very broad topic. What aspects of heritage are specifically covered in the existing County Development Plan? And I'm taking the existing plan, which goes from 2008 to 2014, just as an example to show you the types of topics and the types of policies which we've covered in that, as I suppose a way of sparking discussion and debate about what you consider should be put into the new development plan. And as I said, some examples of existing heritage policies as well. So firstly, what is heritage? It's a really, really broad topic. I think in the Heritage Act of 95 there's something like 18 different topics within heritage, and it's everything from archaeology to flora and fauna, geology, parks, underwater wrecks. But you can really simplify it, I suppose, by saying that it's built, natural and cultural heritage. Those are the three main themes that you can divide it into. And in a nutshell, it's basically what makes Kilkenny unique, what makes us different from other cities and counties, and I suppose what gives people that kind of civic pride and sense of place in the county and the city. So just to look at the existing plan, and in the existing plan, heritage is broadly broken down into two areas: natural heritage and built heritage. And I just threw this slide in because not only is it a nice slide of an aerial shot of the city, which shows obviously the castle there, the castle park, the river going through the city, Bateman's Quay, gives a good outline of it. But the point I'm making here really is that natural and built heritage are not separate. We have them as separate topics within the development plan, but they're very much linked together, and you can see that by the way the river and the green spaces are just dotted throughout the city. Okay, so firstly, built heritage. In the development plan, I'm just going to literally, each of the words you see here are themes that are addressed in the development plan. So urban structure and public spaces are addressed as they relate to primarily the architecture of the city. Views and prospects, the photograph I have here, I'm sure most of you are familiar with it, the view down to Magdalen Street and to St Mary's Cathedral. City presentation and maintenance, how the city is maintained and presented in terms of its heritage assets. We also deal with archaeology, and most of the city has some level of archaeology sitting under it because it's such an old city that goes back for years and years, so it's able to tell us how our ancestors lived in the city before that. The photograph there on my right hand side is some archaeologists working on Talbot's Tower when we were doing the conservation works on that. Historic graveyards, we have a number of policies in the plan around that, and in the city we have 5 or 6 different historic graveyards. Throughout the county we've got 300 odd, and it's an area that I would get a huge amount of queries about. Lots of communities are very, very interested and committed in working in historic graveyards. Architecture is another big area, obviously, that's addressed in the development plan, and that's in relation to the record of protected structures, which is basically a list of buildings that are of particular merit, whether it's for architectural, archaeological, social or cultural reasons, and they're all listed in the appendix in the development plan. And then the other area is the architectural conservation areas, and these are areas of special character, primarily because of architecture, but it can be to do with archaeology, social, cultural or historical reasons as well. We have 9 architectural conservation areas, or ACAs as they're called, in the city. We've one around St Mary's, we've one around John Street, another around St Canice's Cathedral, and they're areas that have a very specific character, and there's policies in the plan around protecting and conserving those. And then the final 2 areas of built heritage that are addressed in the plan are floodlighting, so how floodlighting might impact on an historic structure like the one here, for example, St Canice's Cathedral. Floodlighting can also have impacts on natural heritage, because if you have bats, which are a protected species, roosting in the area, light at night time can interfere with their normal pattern of going out to feed at dusk and coming back at dawn. So that's one where there's a crossover as well. Place names as well, and I suppose in the city it's primarily in relation to place names, old place names of the city, the village, the continent, street names, things like that. But in the county it goes down to, I suppose, field names. Here on the slide there's a photograph of the River Nore. It's part of a heritage audit we've been doing for the last number of years, and as part of that we've been collecting the names along the river, where the fishermen will call it a bend in a river a certain name. On a 120 kilometre stretch of river, we got over almost 100 names from local anglers. That was from the Laois County boundary just down as far as Kilkenny City. So it's something that people feel very strongly about, and I suppose that's the cultural heritage. And then just 2 examples of policies that are in the existing development plan that relate to built heritage. No particular reason for including these, but it's just to give you an example of how we take, after we see, well, what is it from a heritage perspective that we have in Kilkenny that's important, and what are the policies that we might want to put into a plan to protect those. So the first one there is to require an appropriate archaeological assessment to be carried out in respect of any proposed development likely to have an impact on a recorded monument, a zone of archaeological protection or their setting. The second one then is to ensure the preservation of the special character of each ACA with regard to scale, proportion, building lines and building materials. So they're just 2 examples of existing policies. So then I'm just going to move quickly on to natural heritage. And the topics that we cover under natural heritage include designated sites. That's sites that are protected through either national or European legislation because of their importance in terms of either their habitats or the species that they contain. The River Nore, for example, is a special area of conservation, so it's got a very high level of protection from an EU perspective. We've got a number of protected species in Kilkenny City, the salmon, for example, and the photograph here is of a salmon that was caught just outside Kilkenny City in 2009. Amazing to think that a creature like that is actually swimming through the city, or was swimming through the city. And then the kingfisher. The River Nore was recently designated as a special protection area primarily for the kingfisher, and a survey done a few years ago found that the River Nore had one of the best populations of kingfishers. Again, if you're out walking along the linear park or any of the new river paths, you might actually be lucky enough to see the kingfisher as well. There's policies around nature in the wider countryside, so not just sites that are important from a national or European perspective, but sites that are just important from a local perspective. It could also include trees, hedgerows, just kind of the local stuff, but that's important to people. We also have a policy around preparing a county biodiversity plan and a county heritage plan. We also have policies around historic gardens and designed landscapes, and the photo there is of Roath House Garden, which many of you will be familiar with, and policies around rivers, streams and wetlands. We have policies around county geological sites. We've got about 18 of those around the county, one of which is in Kilkenny City, and that's Archer's Grove quarry, from which a lot of the black marble from which Kilkenny is famous would have been quarried in times past, so that's actually a protected site. and also woodland trees and hedges, and that's just a photo of the canal walk. So right up against the city we have quite good biodiversity. Just some examples of policies around natural heritage. One policy is to assess all proposed developments which are likely to impact on designated natural heritage sites. That's quite a straightforward one. Another one would be to seek the retention of hedgerows and other distinctive boundary treatments such as stone walls when undertaking, authorising or approving development. And I suppose to finish, just to throw out a couple of possible questions that you might want to maybe address when we break up into the groups. Is heritage important to the city and county? If it is, what particular aspects do you feel are important? If it's not, why and what do you consider more important than heritage that you think should be reflected in the county development plan? Is heritage something that should be protected or not? If yes, what parts should be protected? And any suggestions for how we should be going about doing this through the county development plan? If it shouldn't be protected, maybe why not? And what would be recommended instead in the county development plan? So that's it. Thanks very much.